Hello everyone, so today we're going to learn how to morph objects in Blender. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is import the files you wish to morph between. In our case, it's going to be a ferret and a tanuki. Okay, this ferret's kind of large, but let's import the tanuki. And in this case, I've flattened it all down into one mesh. This is important that it is all in one mesh. Can't see the tanuki because it's quite small. Let's get rid of the cube. And to do that, you select it and hit X, so you get rid of objects in Blender. And let's take our ferret, get this wider so it doesn't so narrow, and let's shrink him down to 0.1 of his size. And let's get the tanuki up to size. Okay, the tanuki is actually still a bit large, still a bit small, so we're going to line his feet up. This works wonders if you take the effort to line their feet up. And so now you've got these two meshes. Let's hide the tanuki right now. You notice the ferret is low poly. It's more of a weasel. We'll call it a weasel now. So what we're going to do to him is we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier. In our case, 3 subdivisions. And now you can see he's much smoother. He's not low poly. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the tanuki and we're going to apply a shrink wrap modifier to him. We gotta select the things that are triangles right there, the golden triangles, and go add modifier. The modifiers are under the wrench, and we're going to do a shrink wrap modifier and set our target to ferret in this case. And you know what? Let's set his offset to a few bits less than. And you want to apply this as a shape key. This is important. And so now we're going to learn how to use keyframes to animate our little transformation. So if you go and select the shape key for the shrink wrap modifier, you can see he'll transform down. So we're going to initialize this keyframe by making sure we're at frame 0 or whatever starting frame you want to start this animation at, and hit I, and that will set a keyframe right there if you see the little yellow line there. And so let's jump over to frame 40, and we're going to take our shrink wrap value and move it all the way to 1, hit I again, and that will set a keyframe there. So when you go and play the animation, just like that. Now, it's not very convincing because the weasel is still there the whole time. So what we're going to do is we're going to initialize the weasel as invisible at, let's go to frame 0 again, and we're going to initialize these values at I, and then we're going to go to frame 40 and we're going to make him visible. Oops. Set those keyframes there. Just go back to the tanuki and we're going to initialize him as visible, and at frame 40 make him invisible by hitting I on all those things. You can animate all sorts of things. Almost any control in here can be attached to keyframes, and this can be really useful. And so now if we play the animation, he shrinks down, becomes the weasel. Of course, it's a little rough right there. So actually, let's make the weasel visible right about there. So let's make it visible there, and just set our keyframes there to make it visible. And so now it's a little smoother. So this is a very simple animation, and let's stop him at 50, so end at 50. And let's go and render. Actually, what we want to do is we want to make sure. Okay, let's see what our render shows right now. Now our Tanuki is a bit shiny, so how we can fix that is by going into his materials, and in this case this guy has 2 materials, and we're going to want to see the one that looks like his fur, and just turn the specular intensity all the way down. Just turn it all the way down. And so now when we go to render, he's nice and flat. So let's render an animation of him. Okay, in our case, we have it so it exports to a video file on a non-volatile portion of our memory, but by default it will export to temp, which disappears after you close the program. So let's play our rendered animation. In this case, Blender will play it in a loop. This is useful for shorter animations. It's a little rough right there, but there are ways you can get rid of that rough transition, but we're not going to go into that today. So we're actually going to open what created our little intro, and let's get out of the render view. Select our camera so you can see it in yellow, and let's go into object so you can see this. And so you'll see it transforming right here, and if this thing will stop lagging, and you can see the values over down here are moving. Anything can be keyframed. That's what's really neat about Blender. Well guys, I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching this little mini Blender tutorial.